Ready to talk about sex. My name is Rose Heartsong, and you are listening to Follow Your HeartSong, which is tonight is the first show, and we're going to be talking a lot about sexuality, spirituality, and holistic health. I'm really excited to be sharing this in the world. This is a taboo topic that we don't talk a lot about, and I think it's time to strip away illusions and break those taboos and to really deep dive into what it really means to live freely in the world about sexuality. I see it everywhere I go as a sex and love coach. I see a lot of shame, disconnection, and fear around this topic, and it's everywhere around us. And we're programmed to want it. We're programmed to be shameful about it. That is why I started this show. I'm really excited. So thank you so much for listening. Are you ready to fully follow your heart song? That is what this show is about. My name is Rose Heartsong. I want to start the show a little bit talking about the year of the snake, because we just transferred into the year of the snake. And a lot of people know about the snake energy coming from the Kundalini and the root chakra, ancient Taoism, and different philosophies. The Kundalini snake starts at the base and it goes up our spine, goes into our pineal gland. It's a big transformational year. It's about shedding what is no longer serving us, really stepping into intelligence, mystery, wisdom, and intuition. That's what the snake represents. And this year we're in the wood snake, which is all about growth, flexibility, and creativity. It's also a yin year, so it's a lot more softer and introspective. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I feel like that's so on theme for the beginning of a sex positive focused podcast, right? I bring in and infuse a lot of spirituality into my work and holistic health, because if somebody is disconnected from their body, they're not going to really want to experience pleasure or be intimate with other people. I also believe that we have unfortunately disconnected spirituality from sexuality. I'm working on a program right now. I've been learning a lot about women's sexuality and having conversations with them. I was really shocked, surprised actually, to find out that sexual development is one of the last things that people do. We'll do meditation, we'll do breathwork classes, yoga, we'll go to mindfulness retreats and hire life coaches. But when it comes to sexual development, that is something that unfortunately has been put on the back burner. It's not something we'll do right now, maybe someday. I'm really excited to be sharing a lot more about sexual development on the show and with you guys, and opening the possibility of a new relationship talking about sex. Having the last name Heartsong has made like an affirmation of my life, where I've had the unique opportunity to choose a life that lights my heart on fire, and continuously asking myself what makes my heart sing, an affirmation, having that last name. All right. So talking about shame and sexuality. One of the things I've noticed when I say to people, I'm a sex coach, a lot of excitement and then shrinking happens because it's taboo to talk about sex. So I really want to talk a little bit about shame today. How is shame impacting your life when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to sex, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to relationships with your own body? What are you wanting to let go this year around that? Or have you thought about it? Have you thought about wanting to let go of shame around sexuality? I really want to invite you to think about that and think about what it is that you want to deprogram when it comes to your own relationship with sex and your body and pleasure and play and intimacy. Sex is where adults go to play a lot of times. Yeah, we've created so many different social constructs around it, and we shrink up and we disconnect and we numb and disassociate because it's been so shamed in our society. And I see with working with my clients, a lot of times women have a tendency to numb and disassociate and shut down and get bitter and angry and frustrated and resentful. And men get not seen or heard or appreciated or adored or loved or cherished and like they're seen as kind of predators when sometimes they're just being in honor. Like, we do need to learn boundaries, and consent is extremely important. I'll be talking a lot about that in the show, but I just really want to, sometimes I feel like I see people make up stories around it and their relationship with the shame. And for me, I'm going to go into my story in a little while. I know that I've had to deprogram shame so many times when it comes to sex and my relationship with my body and the relationship with my pleasure. I feel so grateful to be at this place right now where I'm on the radio talking to you about sex. And I'm a little nervous right now because this is my first show. I'm sweating a little bit. I'm a little, but I feel confident talking about sex. I feel excited, grateful, inspired, and present to doing that topic. And I feel like it needs to be done. And I'm here to do it. I think the Buddha said it is be the change you wish to see in the world. Probably wrong on that one, exactly who it was. But I want to talk a little bit about what Follow Your HeartSong is going to be about. This is an introduction show. I'm going to introduce myself and introduce the concept of the show. Follow Your HeartSong has 3 core pillars, as I expressed. One of them is going to be sexuality. And sexuality has such a vast range of what that can be. And I bring in a lot of the core elements of spirituality. I have a deep spiritual practice in my life. I've studied in oracle schools and meditation schools, yoga. I have a background in Christianity and Judaism. I've studied with the Native American church and in ayahuasca ceremonies. I vastly go into the world of spirituality and human consciousness. I'm very intrigued by that. I think that personally I found in my exploration that sexual healing can be some of the most potent ways of releasing trauma out of the body if done intentionally, respectfully, with the intention of service and devotion to the divine. So we'll be talking about that. I have 10 years as a health coach. I've deeply dove into the devotional practice of holistic healing and wellness. So we're going to be deep diving into that, what that means and how to feel good in your body so that when you do look in the mirror, you feel empowered, inspired, lit up, happy, and grateful for what it is that you see in the mirror. Or when you are intimate with a partner, you don't want to turn the lights off because you have a deep devotional practice to your body. So we'll be talking about those as well. I think it's time that we get curious. And one of my philosophies is it's time to live a turned on life. We live in a society in which, as I had spoken about before, shame has become such a powerful aspect of our sexuality. We've turned that turn off energy off and we only allow it to be expressed when we're having sex or having sex with ourselves. But turn on energy can be such a nourishment for creativity, for creation, for creating music or writing books or creating poetry or creating art exhibits. I went to a really fun art exhibit yesterday. Just like seeing all this beautiful art and creativity that's been put into the world. It's a turn on energy. One of the things I love to talk about or teach to my clients is how important it is to have a healthy relationship with turn on energy, not letting it have control over you, but you have control over it. You use it, you channel it, you refine it and have a relationship with it so that it doesn't run you. I call this sexual sovereignty, being sovereign over your own sexual energy. We have all extreme versions of that, from like really toxic or very virgins or people who don't have sex or celibacy, anywhere in between. As I get more comfortable behind this mic, I'll be exploring different taboo topics, always with the intention of empowerment, power, positivity, consent, boundaries, pleasure, play, healing, and expansion. So that's really what I'm committed to. So this is going to be a little bit vulnerable for me. I don't know if I've ever fully shared my story out into the world, but I feel like if you're going to get to know me here on this podcast, I'm going to be talking about vulnerable and intimate things with you. I get to be intimate and vulnerable in myself. A little bit about me. This is the only time I probably am going to do this big of a deep dive, just because we're doing an introduction podcast today. So, hi, hello. So grateful you're here. My name is Rose Heartsong. That is my given name on my birth certificate. I was born in North Central Washington to extremely hippie parents. I think that's one of the reasons I absolutely deeply love Laguna Beach, as I love the hippie community here. I love the culture, that the foundational roots of this town. I think it's so fascinating. If you don't know, I highly recommend that you check out the history of Laguna Beach, because a lot of people don't realize it. Guys, I'm a little nervous. It's good. I'm just being honest. I was born to hippie parents. My mom went to Woodstock when she was 16 years old. She's a New York hippie Jew, and she dropped out of college, hitchhiked across the United States. Her whole goal in life was to find her next joint and to get stoned. She went to all the festivals and lived in her car. My dad's quite a radical as well. I come from pretty radical parents. Though there's hardships in that, I also feel very grateful that I have not had to unprogram myself from the matrix. I was born in a one-room cabin, North Central Washington, with no electricity or running water, with one candle burning and a few midwives. I grew up with no electricity, running water. I chopped wood, got water from a spring on the land. I grew my own vegetables, had my own farm, so we would milk goats and butcher animals. I had a deep relationship with nature. And in the hippie community, I also, because I was thinking a lot, like as I was preparing for this show, I was thinking a lot about, why don't I have a lot of shame? Why am I the person who's on this microphone talking to you out into the world about sex, right? How did I get here? I didn't have to deprogram myself so much from the matrix. I was shown how to be open-minded from a very young age. I feel extremely grateful for that. Genuinely, it's my whole life. I grew up going into sweat lodges. I don't know if you guys know what a sweat lodge is, but it's like a Native American upside down bowl thing that they like made out of sticks that they put a bunch of blankets over, and they heat up lava stones, bring it inside, pour water on it, and pray. I grew up in that. A lot of the times the adults were naked. I grew up around naked adults, which in my life, that was actually quite normal to be around naked people. And, you know, my parents were naked. It wasn't never shame to not have my clothes off. I think that's a huge piece of it. It's just like really understanding that the human body is a beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be sexualized. I feel very blessed to say this, but I've never had any sexual trauma. I've always been able to use my voice, had clear boundaries. I don't have any big, horrible experience around sexuality. And I think that's another reason I feel very blessed and gifted to have had that experience. But I also feel like it's partially to my parents for teaching me at a young age how to have a good relationship with my boundaries in my body. I was taught to own my no. I was taught to use my voice as a very young child. As I become a sex coach and work with couples, singles, and women, I'm heartbroken. Like, it breaks my soul up so much knowing how much sexual trauma that exists in the world. And that's one of the reasons I want to talk about sex. I think the more that we talk about sex, the more those experiences I think won't happen. Hopefully, that's my prayer, is that children are taught to use their voices, to say no, to talk to people and communicate about it, have it be a beautiful experience and not this shameful, hidden, don't talk about thing that sometimes we figure out, like, we don't even have any education at all, except for maybe, you know, if you're listening and you have children and you taught them about sex, I am so happy. Yes, please, parents, talk to your kids about sex. It's a normal human thing. Like, I mean, eating, sleeping, sex, it's very human based. I think we need to talk about it a little bit more. And it really, like, I didn't talk a lot about it with my parents as a kid, but it wasn't shamed. I was able to have a lot of confidence in that area when it comes to using my voice and being clear about what it is that I'm doing with my own body. I really love to teach other people that. I know even like some married couples that I've worked with who've been married 20 years, the woman will not even use her voice fully. She'll say yes when she means no. And that just breaks my heart. We all have different responsibilities in that piece. That's what I do a lot of working with people about, is how to communicate. I started my spiritual journey really deeply because my mom died 10 days after I turned 23. Because I had been raised in this hippie community, been taught different alternative ways of dealing with emotions and lifestyle, I decided to take on grieving as a full-time job for 2 years. I quit my job. I traveled through Asia and India studying yoga, different healing modalities. Like I dove into grief. I was like, I am not going to manifest. My mom had breast cancer. And I have this belief that a lot of times when it comes to cancer, this is my belief. You don't have to believe it. It's just my belief. Cancer has a lot to do with emotional trauma. It's a lot of things, but a lot of it's emotional trauma. I didn't want to program into my nervous system breast cancer because I didn't grieve fully. So I committed to grieving 100%. So very young, I did 3 10-day Vipassana silent meditation retreats, which was so powerful. I got obsessed with healing because I lost my mom. I dove into so many things. I really got into Tony Robbins. I've been to 17 Tony Robbins events live. I ended up working for his company. I got into landmark, somatic healing, massage therapy, and 2 yoga teacher trainings. I just couldn't get enough of holistic healing. Every detox you can possibly imagine. In my experience, a lot of times trauma and grief can actually get stored in the colon. So I did a lot of holistic healing detoxes and protocols in that way. I was living in this little island in Thailand called Koh Phangan, and I was studying at this school called Agama Yoga Center. It's like a yoga university. They have like all these buildings, 24 months of study dedicated to yoga, which is a crazy long amount of time. I just did 1 month and it was like extreme. 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for a month long. They have a sector of Tantra. They teach a lot about Tantra. This is the first time I got introduced to the concept or actually studied Tantra. It's where I was introduced to Tantra and the philosophy of Tantra and took classes and workshops. One day, I'm about to tell a very personal story. So I was at this detox. I had just done my yoga teacher training. I was deep in grief because it was about to be my mom's death anniversary. And I was so deep in grief. And I was detoxing my colon out. I started getting in extreme pain. I was like day 6 of a 7-day fast. And all I was doing was drinking coconut water, some like psyllium husk, and doing colonics twice a day. So it was an intense program that I was on. I can't believe I'm sharing the story. Anyways, so I started screaming in pain. My stomach was hurting so bad. And I had this spot in my stomach ever since my mom died. I knew that it was grief. And I knew it was stored in my body. I started screaming. I was in so much pain. I was hysterical. I was crying. I was so overwhelmed by pain and tension. And the man who owned the center was a Tantra master. He brought me into his massage room. He had to carry me because I couldn't even walk. And he took out this little pamphlet and he showed me the pamphlet. It was all about stomach massage, the benefits of stomach massage, all the scientific things about it, what it does. So he started massaging my stomach and I was just in so much pain. I was screaming. Then he pulls out this other pamphlet and he goes, it's a yoni massage. For those of you who don't know, yoni basically means like vulva and vagina in Sanskrit. He's like, I could do this and I think it could help you. Okay. I was in screaming and excruciating pain, crying, and I just was totally in surrender. Let me make a note. His energy was clean and he wasn't creepy at all. Totally respectful, very professionally done. And this is an offering that some people offer in the world. I don't, and it's a beautiful offering. I said yes. And he very unsexually gave me a yoni massage. And in that experience, I released so much trauma from my nervous system. The reason I'm telling you this story is because this was like a light bulb moment, the aha moment of what was possible in healing when it comes to sacred sexuality, and also what was possible in my own body as a woman. And he gave me an orgasm. It was not a normal orgasm. It was energy was shooting up my spine, out the top of my head, shooting down my fingertips. I felt like I could touch anybody and heal anything, and I was the most powerful person in the whole world. It was a totally different experience than I'd ever have sexually any other part of my life. I was like, what just happened? What was that? And instantly, the pain in my stomach went away. This was a grief moment. Like, this is grief that was stored in my colon that I had since my mom had died. And it never came back, ever. I got fascinated. I'm very analytical, and I love to study, and I love to dive into study. So I started reading every book on sacred sexuality, trying it with a partner that I had, and getting really curious about Tantra and this thing that happened in my body. I got really sexually liberated in a way. This experience opened up this whole world. And let me say, afterwards, he was super professional, super respectful, kind. It was like a bodywork session. It wasn't any sort of creepy experience whatsoever. And I felt healed. Like, I felt like this grief that I had with my mom was gone. And it really fascinated me. Because of that, I know I was 23. I was young. I got curious about this world of sacred sexuality and what was possible in my body. And I just started practicing with myself, with partners. And I was fascinated. A couple years later, I got in a relationship with a man that was very obsessive, and he was emotionally unstable, but I didn't know it at the beginning. I dove into this relationship with him, and unfortunately it got pretty abusive. Sadly, that happens in the world. I believe women becoming sexually sovereign can help shift that reality, and abuse happens. I got in a pretty abusive relationship, and he slut shamed me a lot. I got smaller, lost myself, disconnected from my pleasure and my body and all these things that I had learned because I was slut shamed. And it was a really good experience for me because I feel it gave me this opportunity to have a different perspective of sexuality, like a more toxic version, because until that experience, I really hadn't had that. In the end, I had to end up leaving. It got actually physically abusive. And I left that. In the couple years that I was in that relationship with him and I came out, I felt almost like this ticking time bomb needed to go off. I went from one extreme to the other. I met a partner and he helped sexually liberate me. He helped me own my pleasure. He helped me own my truth, what I wanted and what I didn't. And he was this guide. It was like after I got out of this sexual or abusive relationship, I got into this extremely expansive sexual relationship. The relationship wasn't necessarily healthy, but it was expansive. And it really taught me a lot about different explorations in sex and trying new things and doing different things that I had never even thought about possibly doing. And that's when I got into conscious kink. Going back to trauma, right? We all have trauma and we all store it in our bodies. If you've ever heard of the book, The Body Keeps Score, highly recommend it. Again, back into the location of my body because I had years of meditation experience, years of yoga practice, years of different somatic experiences in my own body. I knew what the trauma was about sometimes, and I knew where it was stored in my nervous system, but I didn't know how to release it always. Like I would try different breath work techniques and screaming and sacred rage ceremonies and all these different ways of releasing trauma from my nervous system because I got so obsessed after my mom passed away that I just didn't want trauma in my life. I've had a tumultuous relationship with my father in the past. I had this trauma stored in my body that had to do with him. I got in this relationship with this man. He was helping me try all these new modalities around sex. And one of them is conscious kink. And so I want to talk a little bit about that because a lot of people aren't talking about it. A lot of people are talking about Tantra, which is, deep intimacy with your own body, breathwork practices, slowing down, being present, eye gazing, connecting with your partner. But conscious kink, and if you're listening right now, you're like, what is that? What are you talking about? I highly recommend you check out the book. It's become really successful, called Existential Kink. And basically what she talks about in that book is that there's certain aspects that are toxic patterns in our lives that we're subconsciously turned on by. When you start to bring that subconscious turn on to the forefront, you look at it, you have a relationship with it, and you acknowledge it, and you don't shame it, because we got to let go of shame, right? Then we have this unique opportunity to alchemize it or release it or let it out of our bodies. Just like when I was having the really bad stomach ache, I got the yoni massage, had the orgasm, alchemized, and it never came back. And my digestive system, by the way, totally didn't go into this, had horrible digestive issues before that. After that, digestive system was perfect. I've noticed also with my clients, a lot of times sexual trauma in women gets stored in the colon and they have a lot of digestive issues. So side note on that one, body keeps score. A lot of trauma gets stored in the body. I think for women, a lot of times it gets stored in the vagina or the cervix, which we will be going down that rabbit hole later in the show. But to conscious kink, I will honestly say I'm a little edgy. This is very taboo even for me to be speaking about this, and I feel like it needs to be said. So I'm going to say it. I believe that sometimes with consent, communication, clarity, and talked about over and over and over again prior, you can have experiences with your partner that are edgy or taboo. And maybe I'm not going to go so deep into that today because this is the first episode, but that can alchemize that trauma through intentionally going into what the trigger is. That can be like spanking or having to call, requiring somebody to be called daddy, or being submissive or dominant, which a lot of times it's actually a lot better to say leader or follower. And we'll go into that later on as the episodes go down. But I had this really bad wound with my father, and it was stored again, like underneath my heart, above my stomach. I had this partner ask me to call him daddy. And I was like, heck no, that's not going to happen. No way. I was very resistant to it. I kept being resistant, kept getting irritated, kept getting frustrated. But the stomach stuff, like this density in my stomach, it was like a rock was inside my sternum, hurting me for years and years and years and years and years. And nothing I did could get rid of it. I finally one day when we were having a sexual experience called him daddy. And when I surrendered to that experience and let go of that resistance, I started sobbing hysterically for 40 minutes. I felt the energy that was stuck again in my stomach, the pain that had been there for years. It was a different spot than the other one. Release. I felt so free and I felt so empowered, strong, no shame. And it was weirdly like, it was like the only time that happened, but I was resistant to it. I think there's this beautiful realm of sacred sexuality that we can dive into when it comes to Tantra and beauty, awe, the gorgeous reality of what that is, devotion to your partner, love and roses and beautiful romantic experiences, and then the kind of the more shadow work. I will be talking about shadow work here. Of course, we only want to do it if we're conscious enough and know what we're doing, and there's a lot of conversations about consent and boundaries up front, which was done with me and my partner at the time. I released that trauma. In all honesty, I didn't talk to my dad for years and years. I had a huge resentment towards him. And now him and I actually have the best relationship we've ever had in my whole life. We have more authentic conversations than we've ever had. So I think there's some healing there. You guys might think I'm crazy, but I'm going to challenge you in the taboo. After that experience happened, again, dove deep into books, study. I took some, like I said, I've been studying Tantra since 2013. And then I started the conscious kink journey in 2018. I've done like schooling in it. I've been certified in that realm. so I know how to use that. It's interesting because it's actually wanting to be brought into the consciousness of the planet. I think I went and saw the movie Baby Girl the other night, and it was about what I'm talking about, the DS dynamic and the healing. It showed a lot of the healing, conscious kink and kinky experiences, and in the taboo. It was a beautiful film. I highly recommend, if you're like, what is she talking about, are curious, to go watch it. It can show, it was like, there was moments that it was even edgy for me, and I'm pretty open-minded. So just note that if you do watch it, it's edgy. It's very creative, fun, interesting, and very bizarre. But I really loved that movie, and it's a really good way right now in the theaters to go and check out what I'm talking about in a different way. We've talked about shame. We've talked about my story. Now I'm here teaching about this. The reason I'm teaching about it is because everybody would call me and ask about sex all the time. I was that girl that they would call whenever they had sex issues. And I was like, maybe I should get certified as a coach in this, which I did. It's such an honor to be able to be involved in this way in people's intimate lives. Let me clarify, because people have been asking me lately, what is a sex coach? I don't have any sexual interactions with any of my clients in any way. They don't touch me. All clothes stay on. It's PG-13. The majority of the time we talk. We talk about your goals, what you want to create, and what it looks like to have your most turned on epic sex life ever. Difference between a sex therapist and a sex coach is, if I have somebody talk to me and they have a lot of trauma that they haven't processed yet, I will tell them, like, I am not certified to work with you. You get to go and work with a sex therapist, because sex therapists have a beautiful training and they're able to work with people who have trauma in the past. I help you get clear on what it is that you deeply desire and what you want to do in the future. What do you want to try? What have you thought about in your head, but you've been too afraid to speak out loud? That's what I do. I just make taboo conversations comfortable to talk about. I hope that this conversation was comfortable. I shared a lot of my story in there about that. I now want to talk a little bit about what the future sexuality would look like if, let's say, we didn't have all this trauma. Or let's say we didn't have all this shame. Let's say it wasn't so taboo to talk about sex. Let's say we all start talking about sex, and we all have boundaries, and we all have consent. And we all are honored with our no's, and we're all honored with our yeses. What would the world look like? What would the future look like? How do you think a world of turned on people would look like? I'm talking about respect, devotion, honor, love, intimacy, depth, healing, power, play, love, and like all of the beautiful aspects. If we were able to let go of the shame and let go of playing small when it comes to sex and sexuality, or let go of craving and needing and desiring and wanting, or needing it to feel fulfilled or loved or adored or whatever we've been using it for in the past, what would that look like? For me, it really comes down to empowerment, confidence, clarity, respect. I think respect is a really big one. I think we've forgotten respect a lot in our intimate lives. I think respect and devotion get to come back into the bedroom, and honor, really cherishing and not taking those moments for granted, really putting energy, beauty, prayer, and expansion into it. So that's what I think. So I'm going to invite you right now, as long as you're not driving, to close your eyes and to take a deep breath. I've been talking about some crazy taboo things, and I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Take a couple deep breaths into your body. Breathing into your belly, into your heart. Maybe you can put your hands on your heart, dropping your shoulders, making sure there's no tension in your jaw. Closing your eyes and letting any tension from your eyeballs fall away. I want you to really ask yourself or think about a moment in your life in which you have had a moment of sexy liberation or deep intimacy with yourself or a partner, how amazing and beautiful it was. And what textures there were in your body, like how alive you felt, or what sensations, or did you feel seen? Did you feel the other person deeply? Just think about the vibration that you were at. Did you feel alive and full of joy, or your heart was open, or you felt ecstasy in your body? I hope that you've had these moments. I want you to really imagine what it would be like moving forward to have those experiences primarily. Moving forward, that when you start peeling back the layers of shame and start diving into the devotion of intimacy and pleasure and play, that beauty can get made in your life. And that's what I hope for you listening right now, that your relationship with your body, your sexuality, your pleasure gets to be light, loving, fun, passionate, playful, joyful, ecstatic, and orgasmic, delicious, yummy, activating, and that it feeds you, your creativity, your contribution to the planet, and that it is your source of nourishment moving forward. My hope is that as we explore on the podcast, that we can unravel the layers of shame, that we can have a harmonious, fun, and expansive sex life in our own lives, and to talk about sex, have conversations with your partner. So if you happen to have a piece of paper or a pen or your phone, you can take a note. But I have a question for you, and I'd love for you to think about this question. You can journal about it or just think on it. What belief or idea do I get to release in order to embody my sexuality in an empowering, inspiring way? I really want you to really focus on that. And also I brought up the piece about shame. And in that piece about shame, what aspects of your sexuality are you still holding on to, or have you been holding on to, that are shameful in your body? My invitation is that the next time you are in a shower, a bathtub, jump in the ocean, and any sort of body of water, that you intentionally choose to have it be a ritual in which you are letting go of that shame in your body. You can, hopefully you're doing this by yourself, and you can even say out loud, I'm releasing the shame that I am not good enough, or that I won't be loved, or that I'll never fulfill my partner's needs, or I'll never have my needs fulfilled, or I'll never meet my dream partner, or I'll never have the sex that I deeply desire, or any negative story that you might have had more than once in your head. Maybe you can verbally vocalize that you're choosing to let it go now. Let the water wash it away from your nervous system. Wash it away from your skin, from your hair, from your body, and just let it be free. Breathe. That's a good one. I teach all my clients to breathe. Breathe when you're in tension, and breathe when you're in pleasure. Next week, we're going to talk about sacred sexuality deeper. I shared my story, but I want to talk about ways in which you can dive deeper into your sacred sexuality, reclaiming your desire, your power, and your pleasure. The following week, we're going to be talking deep dive into health, what true health is, in my opinion, how to nourish your body, mind, and nervous system so that you have a really healthy relationship with sex with your body. And then we're going to dive deep into the sacred path of walking in alignment with your soul. So that is what we're going to be talking about. Also, Valentine's Day is right around the corner, which is a really sexy time to be with your partner. And I'm also hosting a Galentine's event that is going to be in Newport Beach. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to my website, which is roseheartsong.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram, Rose Heartsong. If you were impacted by the show tonight and anything came up, or you just want to share, I'm totally available. I would love to hear from you. Please be respectful and kind. I do have some clear boundaries about that, and we'll talk about it more in the next show. But it's been such a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you so much, KXF. And I'm super grateful to have the opportunity to be here. So again, if you want to get a hold of me, roseheartsong.com. I'll be here next week. That's all for now. Bye.